Hi everybody. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and I want to kind of keep them clear, but they are intertwined a little bit. All right, like about 2 years ago, I had the note-taking software for the videos and stuff, maybe even a little longer, and that was interesting as a side project. I had done it on the YouTube servers, and when I got to the point of scanning conversations, similar to what I'm doing here with the map. Now the map is just a way of graphing these conversations. More important is the database underlying there that does the scanning and figures it out. But anyway, I didn't like the Google App Engine. They changed how they work. You have to design things a certain way. Okay. So then, after a while, I started working on converting my technology to a new server, and I had some personal things. I kept working, but I stopped working on the video part. And I worked on several other projects that required databasing, how to do financial transactions, various things like this. And I sort of completed what we call the stack. The stack, because it's a layered, server and the client, all these different parts that you need to have a complete service, website and the web pages I want to build act more like applications, like standalone software. So even though they're in the browser, they have to be built the same way as regular software. All right. Well, recently I turned back to doing the video player. So I just uploaded a video where I have a video player. So it's related to the map in the sense that the map system is something I've made with this complete stack, but I've added this 2D map, and yet everything you need to have a debate site, the important stuff is actually in the YouTube spider and the server code, right? Separate from the map. Now I think the map's a good way to see a lot of information at once. But so I'm going to be discussing two things. First of all, the map system a little more, but also a Kickstarter for a different project that would use some of the software that I've created. Well, it would use all the software that I've created for this, but in a different way, going back to this idea that we've discussed for at least 3 years now of the need for a community to have a better kind of interface and also a better policy system, sort of a better legal system when it comes to things like getting flagged off the service, adjudicating administrative actions like reacting to the DMCAs and stuff. So first, the video discussion site is the subject. Well, I always say this first. Okay, I've talked about something else. It's my first slide. It's been sitting up here. Probably some of you have read it while I was talking. Now I'm going to pay some attention to it. This is what this video is about. Really, is a video discussion site. Okay, there is mapping, not necessarily with a map. It could just be a 2D diagram. That's still called mapping in my computery world. Okay, debate management for when it's a conversation where you're trying to track, like in a court case, who's made their points, who's justified them better, and you'll have some official judgment schema. But it's a computer, so you could have more than one panel of judges, right? You could have the Christian panel of judges and the atheist panel of judges and the antinatalist panel of judges and the university professor panel of judges. But there probably would be a system where there's an official, and the site might have its official general purpose judge panel system for creating panels of judges and then using them, for example, if it's a contest. It might not be perfect, but you have to have referees. There'll be notation features like my note-taking system, and this relates to the fact that though I think it's good to focus on videos, that's sort of the hard thing. If you handle videos and comments, you basically have what you need to handle blogs and annotating blogs and stuff. And I'd like reply systems that could, you could reply to a Twitter with a video and so on and so forth. But this project would just focus on the video discussion site using YouTube, at least initially, but looking to also support any other site that will give information through HTML5. The beauty of HTML5 is not only do you have one player that it all works, but you can ask the player for the metadata, like the name of the author and the URL it's at and things like this. Very powerful, very good timing for this kind of software. Okay. I mentioned the judgment features so you can have panels of judges. And then here's an example of why I'd like to talk to you guys, because it's not like I'm going to discuss this idea for Kickstarter, but even if everybody said, yeah, I'll give a big bunch of money, that we don't the people that'll be watching this video, we don't have enough resources, I don't think, to fund this. This would have to be marketed a different way. And here's a perfect example of why. Because I say this video discussion site is going to have personal spiders, and I mean that as a good thing. Yeah, personal spiders. I don't have the ear for proper marketing phrases. A personal spider just means that it's going to go out and search the web, and instead of doing it at a server and then telling you what it wants to tell you, it does it right from your own browser. That information is yours, and you don't even have to share it with anybody else if you don't want to. At least technologically, that's the way it is, and that's the way I intend to build my system. Of course, I do want people to share some of the stuff their spider finds out, because that's how we have a peer-to-peer system that'll behave really quickly. It'll be a snappier way of interacting with YouTube or Vimeo than their own interfaces. I could go into why, but that would be too technical for this discussion. So basically, this thing gets to be about Kickstarter brainstorming. I don't necessarily know that much about Kickstarter, but I've read plenty. When I say I don't know, it's not like I haven't gone to their website or read a bunch of articles or studied which are the successful kinds of projects. I just haven't used it myself. And so I want to discuss a little bit of how Kickstarter works, both to tell people that know less than me, but also for people with actual experience, my little framework of knowledge. I'm sure if I actually want to have a Kickstarter project, I could use a little bit of experienced, someone sharing their experience with it. Even if it's impersonal like mine and successful Kickstarter projects. In my case, the advantage I hope to take to it, because this channel is not a marketing tool, there's just not enough people involved, it's a conversation that I'm having, that's the hobby. But I have a demo, and I think I can market that demo. I think it has a novelty value that if you don't ask people to pay for it, they'll probably look at it, and I think I might be able to get just a modicum of people to support it. But I see also difficulties with that hope or desire, and I tend to be a practical person. That's why I'm hoping to brainstorm here, and if it's just me and I'm giving the feedback to myself, that'll be beneficial, and I'll keep doing that. But I think there's probably at least a few people out there that would have some constructive things to say. Constructive criticism, welcome. Deconstructive or destructive criticism, also welcome. I always feel more confident when people say something's impossible, because of course I'm wondering if it's possible, and when they say it's impossible and why they think that, and usually it's like, I like my idea better and it seems more possible as a result. So it's all welcome. But really, if somebody has some insight, that's what I really want. If you don't think your advice is insightful, then don't feel that I'm insisting you share it. I'd like to discuss a little bit what is being built, because I am building this Kickstarter or not. It's just that I realize, if I dedicated to this and could pay other experts to do things like a little bit of art here and there and do some of the IT service, the things that other people are efficient at, we could just get this out of the way. This could just be a done deal for what is pretty much a modicum amount of money for a piece of software. And basically, if the Kickstarter was successful, getting what I need to go from here, I donate my thousands of hours of work over the last couple years, in which I've worked, as I think back, incredibly hard, taking a lot of weekends and evenings, especially the last year. Before that, not as much, but this last year's has been crazy. I've been working 30, 40-hour weekends for over a year now. So I'd like to discuss what it is I'm working on, really. Put simply, my plan is to recreate a cyberspace dream that we used to have and we lost, and then turn it into real software. But that's another thing. I could explain that. That's not what this Kickstarter would be for. The Kickstarter's for a debate interface, a video structured conversation interface. I would love to get some feedback, please, if you just help me a little bit and tell me some things, is like ideas for perks, whether you'd be interested in this or not. It's just, you're the kind of person that uses the internet for discussion. What kind of perks would somebody that was interested in this take on it would they want? Because at a Kickstarter, you need perks. People can contribute at certain levels and they get something in return. And then we should discuss the needed resources, but I didn't really go into that a lot. I didn't make a slide, but at the very end, we can maybe discuss that. There's two levels to that. There's the amount of resources needed to do it strictly. There's the amount of resources to make sure it succeeds. And then there's the fact that I've realized I'm talking about if a Kickstarter succeeded, that I quit my job and do that instead. And what do I do after the 6 months is over? I need to think about it because I could go, well, 3 months, maybe full time 3 months, I could do something pretty good. Well, no, I need enough for it to be, at the end of 6 months that I've built something that goes somewhere, right? At the very least, I've shown something that can live on its own, that isn't like a time drain to keep going, so that I can say, look, successful Kickstarter, I'll make another one. I think this would be an interesting way to do things, because then you can make products you don't have to make money on afterwards. The money people make is just nominal. It's open source, so somebody says, this is great software, I'll run it on my server. Then they do it for adverts, or they do it for a nominal fee, or they just do it for free. And the people that are developers could go on and make the next free thing, and the people that are developing get paid to develop something for a while. And I'm willing to do it for what I consider a minimal and risk-taking amount of living for myself. And really, even in the long run, it was the kind of thing that would just I just want to make a living and make cool things. I mean, that's more attractive to me than going back to Silicon Valley and make a lot of money in a place that takes a lot of money to live and so on. So that's how the personal stuff works in, and I bring it up when I'm talking about resources, because this Kickstarter is like, I figure, well, half the money would be for me to be able to be full-time. Like, this is what I do. This is how I eat for 6 months. At least 3 months. And the thing is, for 3 months, it's just startup and ending, and doesn't give you time to do the marketing. So it's got to be 6 months, but it could be 3 months of labor. That's something I need to calculate more on. But yeah. So I'm one of the main resources. About half of the money I think we would need would be for that. The other half is to pay for other people, and also to have some, sizable handful of thousands, 5,000 or 6,000 in budget for to make sure you have servers, a couple years worth of servers, because I'd like, if the Kickstarter is successful as a Kickstarter, the very least you get is a couple years worth of running the resulting software on a server somewhere. And that doesn't cost so much, but you need to make sure you save the money. And basically, you don't have to literally pay ahead of time, but you want to have the money sufficient to pay for however many servers, whatever server farm you need for the number of people that use it. And at the very least, that would be the people that were a part of the community that had started it. So, but before I talk more about that, I want to talk about this YouTube map. Okay, this is something that's most of the technology is done. It's a complete stack of tools. I like it. I consider it. It's what I call an internet toy, the kind of thing I like to make. But like a lot of toys, it's like, well, why would people pay? And it's not meant to be monetized. And in a sense, besides its toyishness, it's a visualization tool for, like, if you have a scientist's attitude about data, I just love looking at the connections and stuff. So I don't see it as something monetizable, but I do see it as interesting and something that could show you a lot of information at once, right? So I'm thinking, yeah, I would like to see what other people make of it, if they can find it a useful thing. But I've sort of used it as a visualization tool to develop the libraries that I need for my whole stack to be very multi-purpose, so I can make all kinds of software with it. But I would like to get this map up there. So I'm curious because, I love it already, but I know if you have to alt click this or with the, I made a command line. It's sort of self-serving at the moment, but I think there's a visual aesthetic that's appealing. I think people get the idea of why it might be cool, but it could also be inaccessible to them if they don't know the commands or the keys. So I could just make a help page, but I'm thinking more than that. I'm thinking besides telling you all the commands I've created, what are the commands that would make it useful? Basically, it's a two-dimensional set of bookmarks. In this particular map, and of course we can make other maps, and I have systems that can generate maps. You put in a few users and it creates all the people that reply to it become spots on that map. And which of these kinds of things are useful? I've shown a couple videos. I know I don't make them that flashy. I could show in 25 seconds. Here's the thing, like a demo reel, and it's more like a developer's vlog of what's going on. A little bit technical, a little bit of animation. There's usually just some flashy parts when things are getting drawn. I could put those all in a 30-second clip and give people an idea of what it's like to use it, not just to hear it described and the libraries described. Okay, so do you get where I'm coming from? I don't really think the way most people think. So what in this map is the most interesting? Is it being able to see where the buzz is because you've drawn all the lines? Is it having your own subscriptions that you can click back and forth, and it's pretty snappy in certain ways? It's a pretty quick interface in certain ways. I think it's possible it would be quicker to use my interface than YouTube itself if you want to scan through, if you're looking at multiple people's channels because they're having a conversation, for example. Both this tool already, but in addition, little things that can be used to expand the system. So here, let me just go through these things of if what would it take for a map like this to be useful? You want to be able to create an item. Does it have items for yourself or for other people? Creating items and adding items is the same thing. Except for I guess I meant by adding items, adding your own item. I think that's what I was thinking about. Generating maps from scratch. Is that of interest to people? Do they want to do that? That's difficult because I can already do that, but I don't have like the idiot-proof interface. But I'll tell you one thing. If I expose something like creating the maps, I'm not making an idiot-proof interface where anybody can go in there and go, I'm okay with it being only suitable for motivated people that want to figure out how the tool works. But of course, I'd still have to make it easier than I made now, because right now it doesn't even tell you, I don't have a help page saying, here's how you move something, here's how you... It's a little kind of intuitive, but I would assume we'd need more. So generating maps, because I kind of think not that many people want it. I think a lot more people would like to use a map that was either self-generating or maintained by a few interested cartographers than to make maps themselves, right? Looking at maps is more useful than making maps. What about no map? Just a 2D graph. There doesn't have to be a picture of an island under there. That could just be a black or blue background, and what you have is what we would call a graph in computer science, and it's just a 2D way of putting information, because there's like 30 or 40 channels on this map, and you can see a lot of information about all of those channels in the 2D form, whereas when it's a list of subscriptions, it's going to go off the page and whatnot. Right? So you don't have to have it look like an actual map of some place. It could be a graph. Would that be more interesting? That's a feature I'm going to put in anyway by the end. It's already in my list. But is that something that is of interest about the map? Generating maps is where you put on certain things and it pulls in and generates the rest. Creating maps is what I did in this one that's pictured here from scratch. Or tell me, is it nothing? Is it a toy that only I can love? Because I confess, it's the data exploration tool. It's like I've spent time writing tools to look at the numbers of pi and patterns in the digits of pi and stuff. So I like that kind of thing. Granted, I haven't spent a bunch of money ever paying for other people's tools. I like to make my own. So those of us that like that sort of thing make that. So is this one of those? And that's not entirely disheartening to me because I do a Kickstarter as an art project. Maybe I could do this as a zeitgeist study, not the movie, but the original meaning of, this kind of thing. If I map Twitter this way, we'll find out where the action is. And I just confess, I love data visualization, and I love visualization of internet data, always have. So it's a little like research with no commercial aspect, this map thing. On the other hand, in contrast to the map that has this toy, which I think is interesting, but I just, what I've already said about, I don't see why you'd pay to use something like that. I see why people would use it with all the information in there, but, it's not compelling in itself, really. For a Kickstarter, I mean. I've now started, I've made already the first version of my video player and comment viewer, and integrated into the map system. You don't even have to have the map up there. You could go straight to the video. You could use lists of videos. So this is a separate. It's a plug-in. So now that I'm back on that, I'm like, I've recreated all of the technology I need to do this. Everything that I was doing with the note taker, which, as I remind you, was based on Google App Engine on the server side. So now I have a cloud-based Ubuntu Linux-based version of all this, and I'm finally back to the comment viewers and the video viewers. Okay. And the tools in this area are really sorely needed. I mean, many of us here have spent 5, 6, 3, many years, and many more will, with this hobby, and we have insufficient tools. I don't know if you can imagine what it'd be like doing this with better tools, but I can. So I know many other people can as well, but I of course just don't want to speak for any individual, but I know there's many things. There's many things we agree on. There's many things each of us are certain in our own right. So the comment tools are insufficient, especially at YouTube. Video sites have been terrible with comments. I mean, I really need some more nesting. They've improved a little nesting, and you can click to get the parent. It's ridiculous. My system already, and actually the one I made 2 years ago, it's still been working all this time. I use it. It shows the nesting. If I really want to watch a comment on a comment threads, the YouTube comment interface is okay. Well, I guess I made my point. It's insufficient, let's just say. Tagging tools are insufficient. I don't want thumbs up, thumbs down. I want thumbs up, this was honest. Thumbs down, it wasn't honest. Thumbs up, this was funny. Thumbs down, it wasn't funny. I want every thumbs up, I want tags that you vote up or down on, right? So people can type in the tag, and other people can vote yes or no on that tag. Tagging tools are insufficient. Okay. Notation tools, non-existent. I have my note taker for those of you that have seen me use that. That's more what I'm thinking about, except for, again, that was based on the server side and the Google App Engine. And two, it was in the period when I didn't want to use any JavaScript libraries, and I just wrote the JavaScript myself. And I would do a better job of that now, and I wouldn't even bother because I use jQuery, and if it wasn't jQuery, I'd use MooTools or some other tool like that. Yeah, so notation tools non-existent. Tens of thousands of people use YouTube for this hobby, for this discussion, right? Some of them are just there trying to have a movement, glorify, whatever. Some people only, whatever. Whatever the demographics within this group, tens of thousands. I think hundreds of thousands. I think 150, 200,000 at YouTube using it for this kind of purpose. But my calculations of this and trying to guess at the overlap, the size of people's audiences and the overlap between different people, it's at least tens of thousands of people. And I'm thinking, well, that's a good thing for Kickstarter. Big companies don't want to make toys and games for just tens of thousands of people. On the other hand, if you have 100,000 people and 1,000 of them will, wait, I said 100,000 people. If 1,000 of them will pay nominal fees and fund a Kickstarter type stuff to make it happen, it'll support that multiple tens of thousands of people, right? It'll support this server rather, um, being self-sufficient. So it seems like this is the way to fill out these niches that are real. We've been here for years. We know we're going to still be here. And yet we can't wait around for the big Time Warners of the world to make something for us because there's not enough of us. Why would they make a YouTube custom design for us? No, they're going to keep going for the TV on demand model, and so they should. That's the one that more people need. Maybe when they get that all finished, they'll come to us in 60 years. Well, we don't have to wait. We could do something on the scale of money that we can raise, and Kickstarter is a perfect example, I think. Though, to a degree, Kickstarter is a little bit of a metaphor for just self-funded. How do you make a community of people self-fund something the community wants, right? We talked about how we would do this in a PayPal account and you trust some person. Kickstarter's nice because, well, it goes in there and the campaign itself has a certain amount of Kickstarter. Make sure you get your money back if it's an unsuccessful campaign. There's still trust, though, because, I have to make a demo and a presentation to show that the things claimed can be done, but they can't be. So I'm not worried about that. I do that for a living. I think it's good. Compatibility with YouTube means YouTube is used seamlessly. We're not saying that people would have to convert away from YouTube. No, we like that there's a place like YouTube that's already worthwhile coming. If you just come to YouTube, you'll get feedback. It'll take you a year or two to notice how insufficient the tools are as the novelty that it's possible at all wears off. So, but this design also allows us to seamlessly see. I can have, if the video is somewhere besides YouTube, I just open the player a different way, and the user of our site doesn't have to care that they're at two different places. In fact, we're not going to focus on it, but we'll be able to have video replies to Twitters, and video replies to blogs, and video replies to news stories, and video replies that are to annotated subsections of news stories and websites and so on. And I think you'd be surprised how structured everything can get. And I use the word structured because it doesn't put anybody in control. It just means for those that have the will to look into things, the information will be at their fingertips. It doesn't mean people are going to suddenly become the sort of person that wants that information. But I just want to empower those that do. And every once in a while, for a little while, we all become that person in this subgroup, in the public dialogue community at least. We're a good representative of the spectrum of opinion. We have that going for us and against us. So we need better viewing tools, annotation and tagging, databasing so we can keep track of things that have happened. We need debate tools like tracking what's happened, voting. People can vote on things. We need groups, various kinds of groups, discussion groups, groups that act as judge panels, groups. We need groups features. I have implemented and re-implemented those. Okay, at this point, yes, I'm ready to make I have groups in the system now, but there's a lot of features. There's a week's worth of work, probably full-time work. So, and we need those features. You can't have the discussion unless you have categorization, people categorization, that's groups, but you can also categorize videos and other things in groups, and you have a general, groups is really categorization tools, the general purpose part of it. And then you have all different kinds of categorizations that work different ways, of course. Voting, by statistics, whatever. Okay, we need more details in our contact control, right? We need something that, like the human brain, allows you to get in contact with other people flexibly, but when you have negative feedback for a certain degree, you can afford yourself a certain amount of isolation and avoid direct contact if that's what you want, for better or worse, right? You need free speech and you need the right to remain silent, both at the same time, and that means you get to decide who you want to talk to. Now, it doesn't mean you're not exposed, and it doesn't mean that person can't talk about you, but if you don't want to reply and you don't want to see what they're doing, this is an important part to enabling us to have better communities is you need the right of free association along with your right to free speech. There are ways to integrate that, I think, when the community is big enough, right? In a small community, no, but if you had a community of 20,000 people, you'd find that when you start to have negative feedback with certain people, maybe you don't need to see their comments and stuff, but ideally, they don't have to be kicked out of the whole system, and maybe there's a positive indirect contact still, within the community. I think we need more fine-grained tools for that kind of thing. And we need to for all of this, we need to integrate elements of democratic deliberation. So this software would definitely have voting software, which again I've implemented many times. I'm ready to do it this final way that's compatible with my current stack. Actually, I already have software for that too, but I think I'm just going to redo it. It's pretty straightforward. It's one of those things where you want to get the idea right and then write it. You don't want to get the idea a little bit right and then keep modifying it. No, it's simple when you get the concepts right, but I'm getting too technical. That's one of my issues. Okay, so how does Kickstarter work? Well, simple explanation. You state your goal of their project. You put a little presentation up there, videos or whatever. You get to raise money over a time period. You offer perks of various kinds, usually associated with the size of the contribution, but not necessarily. And this is one of the things I want to ask people about, whether you'd be interested in being involved or not. Just your idea of, what are the kind of perks for this debate site? Okay, more experienced explanations are appreciated, right? If anybody's actually been involved in a Kickstarter, failed or succeeded. Now, let me just tell you what I want to build. I'm interested in your feedback, right? I'm brainstorming. I'd like to collaborate. I want to use ideas I haven't heard of yet. Other people interested in this general picture, if they can see it as such. What part of my ideas relate to something you want to do? Okay, I want to build something open source, an open conversation. As I said, I think that means you have to have tools when you don't want to be directly in conversation with somebody. And really, in the big picture, it's still all a part of degrees of separation. If you don't have to cut off communication entirely if you put 3 or 4 degrees of separation between people. Okay, so I want to create tools that make connections easy, but where the feedback leads to isolation between people that are uninterested in direct contact. This was hard for me to come to, by the way. I had long been adamantly, no, you should learn how to take whatever and just listen to it, but no. This is the clue. This is the secret ingredient that makes free speech possible, is also the right of free association and free disassociation. Okay, to be blunt, I'm hoping you share my hobby and so you want the same tools I want. Some of them you haven't seen that you want, you haven't realized that you want them. I hope you'll want them once they're made. But if this is going to work, you'll know some of them, like I do, before they've been made. Okay, just to be general about it, a better way to conduct conversations online. Hopefully you get the idea of what I'm talking about as I describe it. I want to have better interfaces that are more efficient for subscriptions, reply structure, annotations, right? I've shown you a couple of these for people that have seen my other projects. Like my version of subscriptions, instead of a list of the latest videos where there's 5 from AP and then 1 from some, which hides people that don't make a lot of videos a day, I have a line for every subscription, every person I'm subscribed to, and their latest videos. So I still see DasSpook. And I have groups of subscriptions. So if I want to look at my political subscriptions, I can do that. If I want to see what the F lists are up to, I can do that. Okay, it's always a better use of space. And that's all the map is. And I do want to incorporate the map into the debate site. Like I say, in some, because I already have it basically, and I think it is of use. But you could have the interface not even show that, and still, it's the same idea. Better use of space, motion, and color. All right, to get more information that doesn't even have to be. It's not a click away. It's right there. Okay, this is possible. We're not. There's well known. This is not a personal insight of genius in my case. We simply don't use the space that we have as well as we could, as well as we know how to do. Okay. I want to have an organization that is run by its participants, right? I want the organization to have granted some rights to its participants. Maybe this is a perk. The people that pay for the thing, they're the key participants, they're the initial voters. They can figure out who else to grant the vote or to after it's running as a website. Uh, I don't know, but one way or another, I want an organization that is run by its participants, right? Little side note. I mean, I'm thinking that what I do is I would, if the Kickstarter works, my LLC would fulfill the thing of the Kickstarter, and what it creates, the software and the site, that would be the organization, and it kind of would split off. Now, I could keep working on it, or open source people could work on it, or somebody else could work on it, because it would be open source. And of course, I'd want to keep developing it, but my point is there'd be that separateness, right? Like, I already have my own little LLC that doesn't make any money, but I started, to run my stuff. But it'll open source the results of the Kickstarter. So it'll probably still be somebody that keeps contributing and keeps running the server, right? Somebody has to run the server. So it'll be quasi-related. Well, actually, I go into that. I'm getting too technical organizationally. But my point is that the debate site would not be my company that wrote it. You don't take over my software projects, but when the project is done, the organization that made it, the Kickstarter community that funded it, owns it. There it is. There you go. And it's run by its participants, right? So, and an organization where the obligation of the organization to the participants is clear. So I want to have a constitution, for example, things like that, where administrative discussions are transparent. Any judgments, oh wow, we got a letter from a lawyer, we really are going to have to put a warning in front of this video or take it down or make a judgment. Anything like that can't be avoided. You can't pretend, oh, we just won't have that problem. It's going to be made transparently, as if by a legal system with an internal constitution that can be amended in certain ways and rule systems, and so on. This is going to be a long video, I guess. I want an organization not supported by advertisements. That's my goal. I'm flexible on some of these things. And after the project is created and the software is open source, if somebody wants to try to somehow incorporate advertisements to support the server, that'd be fine with me, right? Because I just want to make a server that doesn't have any advertisements. I want to budget it all so that somehow that works out. A community dedicated to free speech as a necessary foundation of public dialogue. Okay, I'm going to put that in the Constitution, the initial one. A community dedicated to the right to remain silent, to an individual's right to control their personal information and to engage in conversation only voluntarily. Those are the two tricky ones. They go together well. I figured that out, I think. Not the final solution to it, but the beginning solutions. And I want to have software that helps us record the informative parts of our conversation. Sure, there's a lot of yelling and stuff, but sometimes people come up with citations. They tell you about the trolley experiment, or they tell you something, or a funny part of the Bible, and it gets forgotten. It's hard to take track of. I want a piece of software that notices those interesting moments and can create timelines and create a database where it's easy when you're curious. What was going on in this debate 2 years ago? It's possible to explore that. Of course, we're going to focus on what's going on now, but when it starts, it'll start, it's going to have the historical information. Keeping up with what's going on right now means you always have the old stuff available, yeah? I'm really looking forward to just when I get this running and can start doing animations of the conversation over months. But see, then that's just that science toy thing. Okay, so what is the whole thing, big picture? It's a sustainable public dialogue community. It's community driven. It's constitutionally ordered, and it's the technology needed to support the above goals. Right. So what is it really? It's software and services and better viewing tools, annotation, tagging, databasing, boom, boom. And that's right. This is not deja vu. This is the slide I showed before. It's software and services, okay? If you can visualize this, then you can help me figure out, well, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying here's the tools to do what we need to do. But we all get to have an opinion on, well, how would I want to interact with such tools? I want to click on a video and have it do this. I want to click on a map and have it do that. That's the part that I would love feedback from many of you. And again, not based on, if you give me feedback, I'm not going to go, oh, and you better contribute. No, I don't. Let's just assume none of us are going to contribute to this. Just let's have an idea, and then we'll market it in a wider way. And if some of us want to contribute, then fine. Right now, I'm just saying your idea contribution, right? And I say that too because it's always an awkward thing. This kind of support for some idea I would have that I would expect from you guys is just the same support of everything, which is you don't have to agree with me. You can agree with me and not want to help me with it. Just I'd be interested to talk to you about it. Though in the end, I think some of us are a percentage of people that will fund and want to be involved with this thing. It's just that I'd rather pretend that's not even the case. I don't want to pander. I don't want to. This is not a promotion for the Kickstarter. This is like, hey, you guys, this is what I feel like talking about now. Sometimes it's Zimmerman. Well, thank God that's over. I'd like to talk about this and get your idea feedback. And the reason is because even though I think a subset of us will want to say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to put $50 behind it or whatever, we won't be enough to fund it. So we're going to have a plan based on, marketing it otherwise. And there are definitely ways to do that. Okay, so what are we going to get? If I build what I'm promising, I can give more details. If I build, and the Kickstarter money would be to hire other people to help build it, we'd have structured conversation for debate, think tank mode, discussion. I will release the work that I create from the Kickstart that is created by everybody on the Kickstart funding as open source. I will also release my own libraries as open source, which is thousands of hours of labor at this point, and design and rebuild. And these are good ideas too. You guys were really clever, funded just to get this stuff. It's the Novum 9 JavaScript client framework. It's the Novum Server Python, and that's mod WSGI based. It's the Novum 9 Spider, which has JavaScript class systems for users, videos, comment classes. It use the index DB to store them, and it does YouTube scanning. It's basically set up to do other scanning over time. It's a week or two of work to scan something else like Twitter or Facebook. I only have the YouTube scanning right now, the architecture for scanning in general, and the architecture for scanning other websites and sending it to things like the map in the same way, so that the map doesn't have to know that it's from Vimeo or somewhere else. And then I have the N9 map pods for editing and viewing maps and map items. And we would also have the working website as a result. We'd save some of the money to fund a few years of bandwidth to give so that the people that the Kickstarters could use it for that time and give it time to attract a sustainable community. I want it to be constitutionally ordered. Did I mention that? So I will have to be making a simple initial constitutional addressing how to deal with certain legal issues that you can't pretend won't happen, the community issues will happen, and operational issues. Oh, there's a server down. Does somebody have to be paid to check if it's up and reboot it, or is it going to be volunteers? Well, probably somebody has to be paid. That doesn't cost that much. And maybe somebody doesn't, actually. I'd do that. But what if I get hit by a bus? All right. But I also think that some of the perks could be to be part of the Constitutional Convention, right? Because it'll take 6 months to develop this. So the Kickstarter finishes hypothetically. 6 months later, we're going to have the software. The people that did the kickstarting could be, one of the perks could be that they're in the Constitutional Convention process. So I've been thinking while I finish this demo, not before the Kickstarter, I might want to start making some voting software so we can record decisions like that, because we know we need that in the debate thing as well. So now so far I've come up with this idea that there's a four-body in the organization. There's a Senate that can change the Constitution, right? I'll be writing an initial Constitution, or maybe the Kickstarters will collaborate on one. You have a Senate. We could change the name of these. It's It's brainstorming, but I think these 4 categories are good. There'll be the ombudsman, which is the law. They're charged with keeping the system in compliance with the rules that it has, its constitution and its rules. And a rules committee that I'm thinking is a very broad committee, maybe every user or every paying user, or certainly every Kickstarter would be in the rules committee. So the idea of a rules committee is that you have an abstract document that says your principles of organization and your constitution and whatnot, and then you have rules which are like, well, here's our rule of thumb for acting on a certain case, because rules deal with individual actual cases that have to be figured out in the Senate. In the Constitution, where all of the quote unquote laws of the system would be. That's the principles and the guiding principles. Hopefully you understand what I'm talking about, but I'm open to debate. I just want you to understand why I'm saying. And then that would be your 3 branches of government, but you need development liaisons as well, because the development organization, it's going to be people that maybe use this site and stuff, but it could also be other organizations, right? We might have a Kickstarter later on in the future and it contracts out a job to somebody, or it might be open source and just individuals all contributing. And we can't assume that community is one and the same as the community using the site for public dialogue. They probably overlap, right? But we're not going to base the system on that. So what we need is these official rules and ombudsman communities. They will each give a member to a development committee liaison that talks to developers, be they open sourcers, be they private companies that have been contracted, be they private countries that want to pay for services, possibly. Okay, anything like that. So what are the possible perks for contributors? I'm going to go through these because I'm getting tired of how long this video is. They're all question marks here. And this is where I don't know, because I just make internet toys for myself here. Well, not in general, I wish. But what might be useful of other people? I like a software library. That's a toy to me. I can make something with it. But obviously, you guys I'm sure you'd agree with me that it's not likely people are going to want to pay for a Kickstarter of software tools just for programming with. They want a little service. Okay, so what are some possible perks for the debate site? Community-oriented perks might be that you get committee membership. Those committees I just said, maybe that's a perk. To be in the first committees. In the long run, you'd have to have another way for people to get on the committees, be elected or whatever. But maybe the first committees, judgment committees, ombudsman, rules committees, those would be people that supported the service. I don't like the idea that it's an amount for a certain thing, but maybe have elections, or I don't know. You get to be in the Senate if you pay $400 more. Otherwise, you're only an ombudsman. I don't know. But maybe the committee membership and then elect the committee members. I'm not really sure. To me, the complication here is mixing the fact that you pay and get a privilege for paying in the Kickstarter with something like a democratic right. I don't know. The right to vote on feature priorities, right? This I like. We're going to keep a list of features. There's always optional features. I'd like the community to be able to vote on the priority, not necessarily on what the features all are going to be, but once we have our system of figuring out what the features are going to be, it'd be neat to have a committee and groups of people that could vote on which was their favorite feature to do. And I made a lot of online software, and as a developer, I really like doing this because people are going to be happy when you do something that they've asked for. Usually, not always. So maybe that's a perk. Maybe there's service perks. In other words, you're paying in advance for accounts, or you have special account features. The ability to create the judgment panels maybe could be a perk that those judges could then give to other people, and that's how that right would come out, if you see what I'm saying, right? Start with a group of judges, and they're the ones that gets to appoint the next generation of judges. Greater storage limits, I'm not sure. Things to do with the service. Technical perks, I'm thinking, well, if somebody does want to take our software when it's ready and start their own video server, like conference report and and Gary and for the Brett Key. Oh my God, start their own server sites. Maybe if you're at a certain level of contribution, I would give technical assistance to make sure that, to help you set up my software. I'd get my software running on your server or something like this. Possible. Um, Access to source code during development, because there's already source code. I mean, you already see I have the spiders and stuff, so there's already source code some people might want to play with, but it's, that's just for the technical and programmers. But maybe organizational perks are a part ownership, a board membership. There's various things in organizations that are required by not-for-profit organizations and LLCs, and whichever way you decide to organize, that there's certain roles. Maybe those roles should be taken by people that contributed a certain amount. Swag. We could always spend a certain few $100s putting some logo on stuff just for people that just want to contribute $5 or $10. I don't know, really. I usually don't care what you guys all think, right? I'm interested, but it's like, huh? But now I really want to know, what do you guys think? This is where I know I don't have a clue about how other people think. I know it's cool. I know which of these things people ought to like, but I don't know which ones they'd actually like. And it's probably something not on the slide at all. There's lots of parts. I love the whole thing. What's of interest to other people? The discussion and debate community stuff, the community-driven tools, community-driven rules, the technology. These are the basic two categories. There's JavaScript libraries for dealing with YouTube, right? And there's server software that integrates with it. And so there's this community I want to create, and I'd hope to have a model community where people could create lots of these kinds of communities. And there's technology that enables creating those communities. Which is of interest? Which things is sexier? You need both. If people like, yeah, I want the community. Oh, I don't. Who cares about the community? Cool technology. You need both. Which is of interest? Which is sellable? Which is marketable? You guys do this. Imagine for me, which is the interesting part? That's the sexy part. And I'm going to tell you, it's all interesting. If you want one part, the whole set is interesting, because you need it all for that one part to be produced. But which is that part? Okay, because one, that's used to sell the idea, but it's also used to guide the idea. That's the part you serve first. That's the part you understand best, so you know what it can't wait for and what it can wait for. Okay, lots of parts. What's of interest? So what you do? What you do, man? We're not a group that's well designed to do this ourselves. I'm not asking donate to my Kickstarter because we're not a big enough community. As I said, some of us I would assume would want to do that. People have offered before in these ideas over the last couple of years as we discussed them. But it's going to have to be marketed a little bit more widely, right? We're going to have to, but that could be done. Maybe we could market it ourselves, word of mouth, but I don't think so. Okay, so I'm asking for some brainstorming. Can you get the idea of what I'm doing? If so, which is most interesting to you? Which seems most interesting in general to other people? A good focus for a Kickstarter campaign, a good focus for ordering one step of the work before the other based on those priorities and what is most compelling to people. The story is the best story for what we're doing. Honest, truthful story for what's going on, which is the angle that explains it best. So I understand engineering and networking among computers and people. I think I do. I know among the computers. I believe among the people. But I just love the whole complication. What's the simplified but useful application here? For the debate thing, but remember I started this off saying, hey, and by the way, for my little internet map toy, same question. But not because it's going to be a Kickstarter. No, because it's almost done and I'd like to give it to you guys. Tell me at the last minute, what do you want to see in it? Imagine clicking around on it. How do you think it works? It probably doesn't. Tell me what you imagine and I'll make that work more that way if you have an interesting idea, which people almost always do on interface things, if they take the time to think. More so than if they use the interface. If somebody watches one being used, they usually have productive ideas. If they use it, they might get so frustrated their ideas that they express in the end are not as useful. So tell me some ideas. So I'm asking that in two things. And then in the Kickstarter, it's like, no, actually I want this to be sustainable. And we would ask people to donate for this Kickstarter. That's a different level of what's compelling. What's compelling to make someone donate to a Kickstarter? And does it help that once we've created the software, it will be open source? Basically, will be available as freely as it can be at the cost of the server. And if you don't like that, you can run it yourself. So what perks are the sexiest? Is it getting to be a founding father or mother of a community? To be on its constitutional committee? Or is that boring? I love that kind of stuff. I want to create this kind of community. I think that would be fun. Those arguments would be fun and productive if we did it right. We succeeded. But is that boring? Is it more exciting to be able to have a debate with official judges and unofficial judges and prizes? The software supports both of those things. It's going in all of those directions at once because they're overlapping. You know, which is sexier to tell people about first? They're going to get them both. They might get one a little bit ahead of the other, but they require the same kind of things. But they, I might be working on the debate interface a little bit more for, well, the constitutional committee is, that software is going to, I mean, if that was compelling, you'd want to make that software more careful, right? Or is it something else entirely? Anyway, feedback appreciated. I swear I thought this video was longer than an hour, but it's only 49 minutes and 40 seconds. Pretty good.